Printmaking is the art of reproducing copies of a design. A lot of graphic design works, that's logos, letterheads, magazines, may be reproduced through printing. Printing can be done through four main techniques: relief, which is printing from a raised surface; intaglio, which is printing from a sunken surface; lithography, which is printing from a flat surface; or serigraphy, which is printing through a surface. Serigraphy. This is printing through a surface, and it can be done through two major ways. The first is the use of a silk screen, and the second is by the use of a stencil. Both techniques have been discussed in fabric decoration videos intensively. Intaglio. This is printing from a sunken surface, and there are 5 basic intaglio techniques. There's engraving, which is the use of a V-shaped tool called a burin to cut lines and grooves onto a metal plate. The metal plate is then inked and the excess is wiped off. A paper or a surface is placed or pressed on top of it to receive or transfer the image design. In dry point, there's the use of a dry point tool to scratch lines known as bars, thin ridges on a surface. Printing paper is soaked in clean water for 5 minutes. This helps draw out the ink out of the barred lines. A wadded up fabric is used to dab or apply ink all over the printing plate. The excess is wiped away in circles, pushing ink into the barred lines. A paper is then placed on top to transfer the image. In etching, this is where acid is used to eat lines or depressions on a metal plate. So the metal plate is cut to size, and then an acid resist that is used to resist acid is applied on the whole metal plate. A design is sketched out onto the metal plate, and the non-image areas remain with the acid resist. The metal plate is then dipped in acid and wiped out of the excess acid afterwards. The image areas were eaten by the acid, so they are now depressed, while the non-image areas had the acid resist, so they were not eaten into. Ink is then applied on top, the excess is wiped off, and a paper or surface is placed or pressed on top to transfer the image. Aqua tint is a process that's used to achieve tonal variations by the use of depressions with varying depths on a metal plate. The thicker or deeper the depressions, the darker the tone. Mezzotint is the last intaglio technique. A plate is roughened up to create texture which holds the ink in a process called grounding. Then the design is sketched on top. The plate is then covered with ink and the excess wiped off, leaving ink only in the depressed areas which have varying depths. A paper is placed on top. Pressure is applied on it to transfer the image. Relief printing. This is printing from a raised or projecting surface. The design is carved out standing up from the general ground. It's important to note that it prints in reverse. The process again is explained in detail in the fabric decoration video. Lithography. This is printing from a flat surface based on the principle that oil and water do not mix. An image is drawn on stone with greasy material or greasy ink. The stone is then treated with an acid solution to fix or bind the image. The stone is dampened with water, which soaks in the non-image greaseless areas. When inked with oil-based ink, the ink adheres to the greasy image areas, and the ink is also repelled by the water-soaked non-image areas. A surface or paper is then placed on top to receive the image. The image is in reverse. Commercial lithography solves the problem of image reverse in a process called offset lithography. The offset lithography process involves the use of three special cylinders. A metal plate is treated so as to resist ink in the non-image areas. The plate cylinder holds that metal plate which has the original image. The blanket cylinder is soft, and this is where the image is transferred onto. The impression cylinder is where the printing paper is placed and it presses it against the blanket cylinder where the image is offset.
Offset printing is one of the most common image reproduction methods of the modern age. But what is offset printing, and how does it work? Offset printing begins with the pre-press stage, where digital files are broken down by their colour separation and are laser etched onto coated aluminium plates. Each plate is then loaded onto a roller known as the plate cylinder. Each revolution of this cylinder dampens the non-image area of the plate with water from the dampening system. A vegetable oil-based ink is then passed through a series of rollers and finally onto the image area of the plate. This image is then offset onto another cylinder with a rubber blanket. The addition of this process results in a clearer and sharper final image and is where offset printing gets its name. Paper is loaded into the start of the press and is separated by jets of air to ensure that only one piece travels at a time. The paper is passed between the blanket cylinder and the impression cylinder, where it receives the printed image before it's passed on to the next unit to receive the next colour.